Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots. Bootlicker Shills, Nestle's, Earth Peasants, Vassals, Minions, Meat Sacks. Let's go to good old USA and talk about fake news again. I just talked about fake videos and whatnot. And now here's a story that came out. It's a perfect example of fake news, how fake news is perpetrated by corporate news outlets, and politicians all get on board. And nobody wants to talk about that. Well, alternative media talks about that, but they they don't want to talk about that. So anyway, the headline, of course, is Russian hackers penetrated U.S. electricity grill through a utility in Vermont, which is quite a handful and quite a mouthful and preposterous. And the media hysteria is out there because everybody picks up the story immediately and it continues this Russian boogeyman narrative. And then all these supposedly intelligent grown-ups who are in our government come out with these ridiculous political reactions and statements. If you want to indulge in those, like as usual, I'll post the links below for these stories. But as it turns out, there is no story here, and already everyone that's involved in printing it is backing down. But the damage is already done. That's the point I really want to make here, is that the damage is already done. A lot of people are just looking at the narratives, the headlines, and if it fits into the narrative that they've already accepted, then the headline merely reinforces the story and makes them more angry. And then it turns out there's no evidence, there's no basis to the story, but a lot of people don't get that far. So in this case, there was no penetration of the U.S. electricity grid. Burlington Electric, after receiving a Homeland Security notice sent to all utility companies in the U.S. about the malware code found in the Democratic National Committee system. And they searched all their computers and found the code in a single laptop that wasn't even connected to the grid. So there's no story there. And then it's already been officially debunked. And AOL even came out and said that the matched malware code on the laptop may have resulted from a benign episode visiting a questionable website, for example, and that Russian hackers weren't necessarily involved. So you got to love the level of fake news that we have now, that they can even acknowledge in the article that it's complete and utter bullshit, and yet the story remains and continues to get spread and still has these nefarious headlines. And as I wanted to point out in the previous videos about this whole Russian hacker thing, and I ended up having to post it, but John McAfee, the founder of the security firm McAfee, said that, quote, "I can guarantee you it was not the Russians," unquote. He said the FBI report provides an appendix of IP addresses supposedly used by Russian intelligence. Some are from Russia, the majority are from all over the world, which shows any hackers were faking their locations, hiding their tracks, and using fake languages. For example, if the Chinese wanted to hack and blame it on the Russians, these would be exactly the results we would expect. So that's a part of the quotient here as well. And then it also reminds me of a quote that I've posted numerous times in other videos in the comment section, a 1981 statement by Ronald Reagan CIA Director William Casey. And he said that, quote, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false," unquote. And so with this whole fake news phenomenon going on and the layers of it, and the misinformation out there by alternative news, mainstream news, and the government, certainly the American public has no idea what's true or false anymore, probably including me, I would imagine. But and a good example that I wanted to bring up, and I wasn't sure what context, is that I always used to be disappointed during all the years of Bush and Obama that so much bullshit material was sent out in mass emails and was quickly spread around as if it were true, and nobody bothered fact-checking sources to make sure that this stuff wasn't sent around. And so I even chastised friends and family over the last years spreading bullshit around about Obama. And there's certainly plenty of dirty laundry on Obama, and one doesn't need to make anything up. And yet the Republican base and the Republican operatives found it necessary to spread bullshit just to make things even worse, and continues to create this divisiveness. So I'm really disappointed now to find a lot of liberal friends and family kind of doing the same thing now, and it just reinforces this whole idea that fake news works really well, and depending on which side of the so-called fence you fall on, fake news is swallowed easily or not. In this case, it's a supposed People magazine quote in 1998 by Donald Trump, where he supposedly said, quote, "If I were to run, I'd run as a Republican. They're the dumbest group of voters in the country. They believe anything on Fox News. I could lie and they would still eat it up. I bet my numbers would be terrific," unquote. And of course, this quote's a total hoax and a complete fabrication, and yet it spread around anyway. And I wish it were true. I think it would be great for for him to have said something that outrageous. But then again, just to reinforce what I just said, hasn't Donald Trump said enough outrageous stuff to make people drive people crazy? Is it really necessary to make anything up too? So anyway, there we go. So some more crazy, those sneaky commie bastard spies crawling all over the U.S., wreaking havoc and destroying democracy. Another story out, and it's not even a story. It's already dead in the water, in its own words. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?